If you're a fan of Disney Pixar magic, then you need to see this, because today, we're recreating the miracles of Jesus like you've never seen before. We're doing something wild, bringing the legendary miracles of Jesus to life in full Disney Pixar style. Get ready to travel back in time and witness these epic moments. From turning water into wine to feeding thousands and even raising the dead. We've used next-level animation to make these stories jump off the screen. Smash that like button and get ready. Let's dive into the first miracle. Alright, for our first miracle, we're heading to a wedding in a place called Cana. Imagine this. The party is in full swing, everyone is laughing, dancing, having the best time of their lives. It's the biggest day for the bride and groom, and everything is perfect. But then, disaster strikes. The host runs out of wine. This is a huge deal, a massive embarrassment that could ruin the entire celebration and their reputation forever. You can see the panic on their faces, the music starts to fade, and people are looking around confused. It's the worst-case scenario for any party host. Jesus and his mother Mary are guests at this wedding. Mary sees the problem and knows her son can do something nobody else can. She goes to Jesus and just tells him they have no more wine. She's not panicking, she just has this incredible faith. Jesus tells the servants to find the biggest stone water jars they can. We're talking massive, heavy jars used for ceremonial washing. There are 6 of them and each one holds like 20 or 30 gallons. He tells them, fill the jars with water. The servants must have been so confused, like, water? They need wine. But they do it anyway, filling every single one right to the very brim. This is where it gets insane. Jesus just says, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. He doesn't say a magic word, there are no special effects, he just tells them to do it. The servant nervously scoops some out, and it's no longer water. It is completely transformed into the most amazing, high-quality wine. The master of the feast tastes it and is absolutely blown away. He calls the groom over and says, everyone else serves the best wine first, but you have saved the absolute best for last. They didn't just get more wine, they got the best wine imaginable, and the party was saved. Next up is one of the most wild stories ever. Picture this, Jesus is teaching inside a house and it is packed. I mean, there are so many people crammed inside that you can't even get near the door. The crowd is spilling out into the street. Everyone wants to hear what he has to say. Meanwhile, there's this group of friends, 4 of them, and they are determined to help their buddy who is paralyzed. He can't walk, can't move, and he's been stuck on a mat for who knows how long. They believe, with everything they have, that if they can just get their friend to Jesus, he will be healed. But there's a huge problem, the massive crowd. There is literally no way to get through. They try pushing, they try asking people to move, but it's impossible. So what do these absolute legends do? They give up, right? No. They climb up onto the roof of the house. I'm talking about carrying their paralyzed friend on his mat, climbing up the side of the building, and getting onto the flat roof. They are not letting anything stop them. They're so dedicated to helping their friend that they start digging a hole right through the ceiling. Tiles, dust, and bits of clay start falling down on the people inside. Imagine the scene inside. Jesus is teaching, and suddenly, dirt starts falling from the ceiling, and a hole opens up. Everyone looks up, completely shocked. And then, these guys start lowering their paralyzed friend on his mat, right down through the hole, until he's lying on the floor, right in front of Jesus. Jesus looks up at the friends, sees their incredible faith, and then he looks at the paralyzed man. He doesn't just heal him physically. First he says, son, your sins are forgiven. Then, to prove he has the authority to do that, he says, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. And the man does. He just stands up, picks up his mat, and walks out through the stunned crowd. It was an ultimate display of friendship and faith. Okay, this next one is straight out of an action movie. Jesus and his disciples decide to get in a boat and cross to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Jesus has been teaching and healing all day, so he's completely exhausted. He finds a spot in the back of the boat, lays his head on a cushion, and falls fast asleep. As they're sailing, the sky starts to get dark. The wind picks up and the calm water turns into a raging sea. We're not talking about a little bit of chop. A furious storm, a hurricane-level squall, suddenly descends on them. The disciples are experienced fishermen. They know this sea like the back of their hands. But this storm is different. It's terrifying. Massive waves are crashing over the sides of the boat, filling it with water. The wind is howling and the boat is being tossed around like a toy. These guys are panicking. They are fighting for their lives, trying to bail out the water, trying to control the sails, but it's a losing battle. The boat is about to sink, and they think they are all going to die. And where is Jesus during all this chaos? Still sound asleep. Finally, in total desperation, they scramble to the back of the boat and wake him up. They're screaming at him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" They are terrified and probably a little angry that he's just sleeping through this nightmare. Jesus opens his eyes, looks at the storm, and he's not fazed at all. He stands up, and with complete authority, he speaks to the storm itself. He just says, "Quiet, be still," and instantly the wind dies down completely. The raging waves become perfectly calm. There's a dead silence. He single-handedly stopped a hurricane with just his voice. Then he turns to his disciples and asks, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were left completely speechless and terrified in a new way, asking each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Get ready for this, because we are about to attempt the biggest food challenge in history. Jesus has been teaching a crowd of people on a remote hillside. And it's not a small crowd. The Bible says there were 5,000 men, but if you count women and children, it was probably more like 15,000 to 20,000 people. That's an entire stadium full of people, out in the middle of nowhere. It's getting late and everyone is getting hungry. The disciples come to Jesus and say, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Basically, they're saying, "We have a huge problem here, we need to get rid of these people." But Jesus looks at them and says something that must have sounded totally crazy. He says, "They do not need to go away, you give them something to eat." The disciples are stunned. They're like, "Us? How?" They do a quick inventory and realize they have almost nothing. All they can find is one little boy who is willing to share his lunch. And his lunch is tiny. It's just 5 small barley loaves, basically bread rolls, and 2 small salted fish. It's a snack for one kid. They tell Jesus, "We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, probably thinking it's a ridiculous, hopeless situation. How can you feed a city-sized crowd with that? But Jesus isn't worried. He takes the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He tells the disciples to have everyone sit down in groups on the grass, organizing the massive crowd. Then he looks up to heaven, gives thanks for the food, and breaks the loaves. He gives the food to the disciples, and the disciples start handing it out to the people. And here's the miracle. The food doesn't run out. They just keep handing out bread and fish, and there's always more. Everyone eats. Not just a little bite, but everyone eats until they are completely full and satisfied. And the craziest part, after all 20,000 people have eaten their fill, Jesus tells the disciples to gather the leftovers. They fill 12 baskets to the brim with leftover pieces of bread and fish. They started with one kid's lunch and ended with more food than they began with after feeding an army. It's the ultimate mukbang. After the insane miracle of feeding the 5,000, Jesus tells his disciples to get back in the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side of the lake. He stays behind to dismiss the crowd and then goes up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Night falls, and the disciples are out in the middle of the sea, rowing hard. But just like before, a storm kicks up. The wind is against them, and the waves are rough. They are straining at the oars, making very little progress, and they've been stuck out there for hours. It's the middle of the night, probably around 3 or 4 in the morning, and they are exhausted and struggling in the darkness. Suddenly, in the distance, they see something that terrifies them. There's a figure, a person, walking towards them on the surface of the water. In the dark, stormy night, this is the last thing you'd expect to see. Their first thought isn't, "Oh, it's Jesus." Their first thought is, "It's a ghost!" They cry out in absolute terror. Imagine the fear. You're in a boat being battered by a storm in the pitch black, and you see a ghostly figure gliding across the churning waves towards you. They were completely freaking out. But then the figure speaks, and it's a familiar voice. Jesus calls out to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." The disciples are stunned into silence, but Peter, always the bold one, calls out, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." He's testing it, but he's also showing this incredible burst of faith. Jesus simply says, "Come." So Peter gets out of the boat. For a moment, he's actually doing it. He's walking on the water, heading towards Jesus. But then he looks around, he sees the huge waves and feels the strong wind, and his fear takes over. He takes his eyes off Jesus, and he starts to sink. He screams, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reaches out his hand and catches him. "You of little faith," he says, "why did you doubt?" Then they both climb into the boat, and the second they are in, the wind dies down completely. The storm just stops. The disciples in the boat were utterly amazed and worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This next miracle is the most emotional and powerful one yet. It's the ultimate comeback story. Jesus has some very close friends, a brother and two sisters named Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. One day while Jesus is in another town, he gets a message that his friend Lazarus is very, very sick. But Jesus doesn't rush back immediately. He waits 2 more days before he starts the journey. By the time Jesus and his disciples finally arrive in their village, Bethany, it's too late. Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. He's been buried in a tomb, a cave with a large stone rolled across the entrance. When Jesus arrives, Martha runs out to meet him, her heart completely broken. "Lord," she says, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." You can feel her pain and her disappointment. She has faith, but she thinks it's too late. Jesus tells her, "Your brother will rise again," and he gives her this incredible promise. "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die." Mary then comes out surrounded by mourners and falls at Jesus' feet weeping and saying the same thing as her sister. Seeing all their grief and sorrow, Jesus is deeply moved. The Bible says Jesus wept. He felt their pain so deeply that he cried with them. Then Jesus, filled with this powerful emotion, goes to the tomb. He tells the people, "Take away the stone." Martha, being practical, protests. "But Lord, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." It's a gruesome, realistic detail, but Jesus insists. They roll the heavy stone away. Jesus looks up and prays to his Father, and then he calls out in a loud voice, a voice that commands life itself, "Lazarus, come out!" And then, the impossible happens. Lazarus, who had been dead and buried for 4 days, walks out of the tomb, still wrapped in his grave clothes. Jesus calmly tells the stunned onlookers, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." He had just defeated death itself in front of a huge crowd of witnesses. For our final miracle, we're looking at a story that is all about hope and seeing the world in a new way, literally. As Jesus and his disciples are walking along, they see a man who was born blind. He had never seen a sunrise, never seen the face of his parents, never seen a single color. His entire life had been lived in complete darkness. The disciples, seeing him, ask Jesus a pretty heavy question. "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" They thought his condition must be a punishment for something. Jesus gives an amazing answer that changes everything. He says, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." He's saying this man's blindness isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity for something incredible to happen. Then Jesus does something really strange. He spits on the ground, makes some mud with the saliva, and puts the mud on the man's eyes. Can you imagine how weird that must have felt for the blind man? This stranger comes up, puts mud on your eyes, and then gives you a command. Jesus tells him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam." The man has no idea who Jesus really is, but he has faith enough to obey. He feels his way through the streets, finds the pool, and washes the mud from his eyes, and in that instant, for the very first time in his life, he can see. Light, shapes, and colors flood his vision. It's a total system reboot, a graphics upgrade from 0 to 4K Ultra HD in a split second. He goes home, and his neighbors and the people who used to see him begging are completely shocked. They ask, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some say it is, others say it's just someone who looks like him, but the man himself says, "I am the man." He went from a life of darkness and despair to one of light and incredible testimony, all because he encountered Jesus. And that is it. 7 of the most incredible miracles in history, recreated. From turning water into wine to literally bringing a man back from the dead, we've seen a story of unbelievable power and, more importantly, incredible compassion. Each of these miracles wasn't just a magic trick, it was a solution to a real human problem. It was about saving a family from embarrassment, feeding hungry people, comforting grieving friends, and giving hope to those who had none. It shows that the most powerful force in the universe is one that cares deeply about individual people. I want you to think about which of these miracles stood out to you the most. Was it the raw power of calming the storm, or the deep friendship that led to the healing of the paralyzed man? These stories have survived for 2,000 years because they carry a message that is still so powerful today, a message of hope. They tell us that even in the darkest, most impossible situations, whether it's a storm, a sickness, or even death, there is a power that can bring light, healing, and new life. It's a reminder to have faith and to always look out for each other. Thank you so much for going on this insane journey with me today. If you were inspired by this video and want to see more epic stories brought to life, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with notifications on, because we are just getting started. Don't forget to hit that like button and I will see you in the next video.